everyone. Welcome to this week's Parenting in My Pocket live Q&A. And this is episode 54. And I just spilled some water on my computer. Well, not to worry. I hope you've all been keeping well. And in the last week, life has been... there's no real major news going on here in Helping to Parent HQ. We are getting a bit of a new plan in terms of how to engage you guys and give you guys more content, more information over the next month or so. So that was a good planning meeting today, which I've thoroughly enjoyed, and it's going to give us a bit more work to do, but it'll be worth it because it'll bring more benefit to you guys, which is what we want. We also have our Parenting After Separation and Divorce course coming in March. And obviously, Parenting in My Pocket Volume 2 is out there. If you want to grab yourself a copy, go and grab a copy. Like I said, we've 2 questions today. So we'll crack straight into it. Question 1. I have 2 sons, aged 11 and 13. They have generally always got along well and would be part of the same friends group. We had the usual messing or rough and tumble as they grew up, which was fine, and we were able to manage it. What I've noticed over the past year or so is that they have become extremely competitive with each other. I first saw it when they were playing on their console, and if one of them won a match, it would almost turn into a punching match as they taunted each other over it. I've started to see it seep over into the most simplest of things, like how quickly they get their homework done, how quickly they get dressed, and so on. I'm sure your listeners are thinking that's just normal, but what I'm worried about is the level of anger and frustration that they get to almost every single time over the simplest of things. We've had to separate them, but as they get older, this isn't going to be an option, and I'm worried they might seriously hurt each other when they are a few years older. Have you any suggestions on how I can nip this in the bud now before it gets out of hand? So anybody who has been a sibling will probably have some experience of some sort of sibling rivalry or getting into fisticuffs with their siblings. It happens to everyone. And with this parent, they obviously know that. They acknowledge that there is just this normal way of being, and as parents they've obviously managed it quite well over the years, but there's a real element here that this mum is being very conscientious of, because she is very much aware that, okay, they're 11 and 13 now. When they are 15 and 17 or 16 and 18, and if they're at that same level, they could get very, very aggressive towards each other. They could get quite violent towards each other. And what are you going to do as a parent? Do you jump into the middle? Probably not the best idea, because, you know, for anyone who's tried to stop an argument or a fight over the years, sometimes things get turned on you, and we don't want that. Now, what I will say is they're 11 and 13. And so the natural part of growing up and having that rivalry with your sibling, there are positive elements that come out of it. There are positive things that come from it. So they can drive each other on to be better at different things. They can, they may influence each other to kind of improve their ability or challenge themselves a little bit more. So there are some wonderful things that sibling rivalry, and sometimes it's for attention, right? And they'll do it to get the attention because, well, they got the attention from mum or dad last time, I want to get it now, so they work that bit harder. But I understand the fear that if they are getting aggressive and going from 0 to 100 in like that, it's probably not helpful for anybody. So I'm sure you've sat down with your kids and had the conversation, maybe individually or collectively, and you'll get that, yeah, but he did this. Yeah, but he did that. Yeah, but he did this. And then I said that, and then he said that, and then this is what happened. So you'll get all the reasons, you'll get all the information from them that points the finger at the other one being at fault. When in reality, both of them need to take responsibility for their actions. And I think that's the way you can start to frame it. So You're responsible for your behavior, and you're responsible for your behavior. And if you're getting into blaming the other person, that doesn't make it okay for you to react or respond in a physical or aggressive way. And even if the other person's being aggressive towards me, it doesn't necessarily, again, make it okay for me to be aggressive back to them. And look, kids aren't always going to come. So you could say, right, come talk to me if they've done something to you. But the chances are they're probably going to take care of things for themselves, and it may not be in the appropriate way. But you can have the conversation of this behavior. If you find yourself getting close to getting into aggression or fighting, well, you're responsible for yourself through that, even in the face of taunting. Now, it's not going to work all the time. In fact, it might only work 1% of the time, but that's okay. By you reinforcing it over and over, they start to learn slowly but surely. And the reality is, they're 11 and 13, they're going to get older, they're going to start to mature. They may become best friends again. They may not, they may get into full blown arguments, but it's about respect. I think that's the ultimate side of all this. It is about respect. They need to learn that they need to respect their siblings as much as they would respect a friend outside, as much as they would respect a grandparent, aunt, uncle, cousin. So it's about saying that this behavior is not okay. So you could try and deal with the sibling rivalry, but that's probably going to be there. So you can't necessarily take that out of them. But what you can do is start to teach them about their behavior when they are in that sibling rivalry, and by putting consequences in place. So, okay, if you two can't play the console together without getting into a fight, console is gone. And it's gone for a day, a month, a week, 6 months, whatever. But I'm not going to allow you to engage with each other like that. And once you take the console away, you have to reiterate. You have to reiterate. The reason I'm doing this is because you two are not taking responsibility for your behavior and your actions. And until you learn, and this is the only way I know to teach you, because I've said it to you, has not made a difference. So the only way you're going to learn is by losing the stuff that you enjoy. And I don't want to do it, but it's down to your behavior. And by you constantly reinforcing that and trying to nip it in the bud and give them the skills. So absolutely repeat and say to them, look, if he does this to you, come and talk to me, and I'll try and help you find a way to sort it out. And they won't get it straight away, but by constantly reassuring them and constantly giving the same message over and over, it comes back to consistency as a parent. The more you do that, the more likely they are, the less likely they are to get to the point of losing it, because one might swing at the other one, and the other one has the urge to swing back, and he went, yeah, but we'll lose the console. And all of a sudden, they'll have sorted it out. Yeah, actually, you don't want to lose the console, so I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do it. That might not happen as quickly as that. But talk about respect. Talk about respect in terms of respecting your sibling as well as you would respect somebody outside. Treating people with respect includes not being physical with them, because you wouldn't accept your child going out and hitting somebody, so it's not okay to accept them hitting their brother or sister. And look at the consequences. What are the consequences that are actually going to have an impact on the two of them to make them realize, to try and teach them that they need to take responsibility for their actions, and talk to them about the options that they have available to them. Come and talk to me, and I'll try and help you sort it out. Or try and talk it out if you're feeling really, really angry, but the behavior is not okay. And see how it goes. I hope it works out. But it's going to take consistency, and it's going to take a little bit of time, but it will be worth it. Good evening, Maria. It's good to see you. Yet again, the best red team won at the weekend and only 9 points behind City. Second in the league isn't for everyone. Correct. Kaylin, evening, still feeling a bit rubbish after the weekend, but bizarre work stuff has helped distract me. That's good. Amanda, hello. Good to see you. I hope you've been keeping well. Okay, second question today. Myself and my husband have been married for 3 years now. We're both in good jobs and have a nice house. We get on great and do lots of different activities together and are really happy. Recently, we were sitting watching TV, and I said to my husband that we should probably start thinking about when we might have children, as I'm in my early 30s and I know it can be more difficult to conceive as a woman as women get older. His response really surprised me. He said that he'd be happy enough if we didn't have kids at all. He said he's really happy with how things are going, and he just doesn't want to change, and worries that a child or children could change that in a negative way. I had assumed that we would get married and have children like many of our friends, and while we never really spoke about it too much in depth, I never got the impression that he didn't want to have children. I definitely do want my own children and can't even imagine not having any. How do I get him to see that we need to get moving on this sooner rather than later? And what do I do if he just says he doesn't want any at all? I'm really scared about what that would mean for our relationship and the future. Should I give him an ultimatum that it's kids or we're over? That just doesn't feel right, but I feel so strongly about having children that I may have to get there. I'm so conflicted and it keeps me awake at night. What should I do? So I have so much empathy for this lady, because it is amazing how many couples don't have a conversation about whether we will have children or not, because we fall in love and we're just enjoying the being together and having so much fun and learning and growing together, and it's such a lovely experience. And then the children conversation comes up and it can throw a real spanner in the works. Now, I know many people who didn't have children and have been really happy not to have children. I've known many people who didn't have children and were devastated, and in their 50s kind of went, I wish I had a child. On the same token, reading this, to me, it sounds like where your husband is at is that he's just really happy. So now, you haven't said that he doesn't want to have children or he never wants to have children. What he said to you is that he'd be okay with you not having children because he is really happy with how things are. And there's a subtle difference, because it sounds like children may be okay, but what he's worried about is that it will change your relationship and it's going so well. And that's understandable. And you can be empathetic towards that. And you can say, I completely understand. I'm a little bit nervous myself about, being a parent and, us getting time. And, like you say, a lot of your friends have children. And if we look at how society is now, sometimes there can be a lot of negative conversations about how hard things are. And it's not all our fault. We do live in a society where negative news, negative feedback, negative things get the interaction. Here I am on a social media platform that thrives on negative conversations, and because what it does is it clicks into the emotion, and we're more likely to react than if we're happy about it. We're more likely to be passive. So maybe your husband is just a little bit unsure, and it's okay to acknowledge it. In fact, I think it's important to acknowledge it. And you can say to him, it is scary, but I know how important this is to me. I really, really want to have my own children. And you don't have to get to the stage yet where you're offering ultimatums, because that may not come to that point. So there may be room for you guys to sit down a bit more, maybe go out for dinner, go for a walk. So you're getting out of the family household, because sometimes, especially if we're working from home as well, it can feel like the walls are closing in. And if you bring up a conversation where, you're sitting down in the evening after both of you haven't had busy days and you're just starting to unwind and switch off, and then we need to talk about kids. Straight away, somebody can go on the defensive because they're going, oh, I'm tired. I don't want to talk about it right now. And then all of a sudden you're going, yeah, but this is important. We need to talk about it. So maybe set some time aside, say, look, let's sit down, let's go for dinner, have this conversation on Saturday evening, or we'll go for a walk in the park, grab a couple of coffees, and we'll have a chat about how you feel about it and how I feel about it, and we'll look at where we can move towards. And that way you're acknowledging the other person. And I always say it, you're probably sick of me saying it, But acknowledgement of the other person is so important because people need to know that they are heard. And if they don't feel like they're being heard, they're more likely to react in a defensive manner. And that's not what we want. Like, at the end of the day, you're worried about your relationship and whether or not you'll be together because you're happy. So let's look at what we can do to try and prevent it from getting to that point. So say to them, look, can we have a conversation? Let's go out and have a chat about it. And, maybe don't do the conversation over alcohol with lots of alcohol and take it on board. But be honest and say, having children is really, really important to me. Yes, it's scary for both of us. Yes, it's something that, may change our lives and how we are, but it may improve our lives. It may make us even happier because I would think that, okay, it depends when you ask your friends, but probably in the macro, when you go and ask your friends about, are you glad you have kids? Probably most of them say, well, yeah, I love them because there is nothing like that, having that little baby look up at you. And yeah, it's tough. And yeah, they cause hassle and, you lose your hair. Not everybody loses their hair. Lucky them. Um, you you get so much more, and there's nothing like that unconditional love from a child. So explain that to him. Tell him you understand that that he has concerns. That's okay. But if we are going to have kids, we don't want to leave it too late because things definitely slow down. Like, and more because the impact of the world we live in and how late people are having babies. Let's not say that you could have a baby at 45, who knows? But it can be more difficult for people, and you may not want to have to go down the IVF route, the adoption route, the surrogacy route, whatever. So it is okay to say, look, this is kind of a time sensitive thing that we need to be conscious of. So have those conversations. Don't expect there to be a reaction straight away, a positive reaction or a, yeah, okay, let's go for it. Now, you might get that and hopefully you will for you. But if you don't, it's okay to go, look, I appreciate you saying what you've said. I'm glad you listened to me. And maybe we can have a conversation about this in the next week or so and kind of push it on because it is something we need to kind of keep in the conversation and keep it in the forefront of our minds if we're going to do it. And it's okay to say to them, I don't want to think about us not having children and the implications that might have for our relationship because I love you and I'm really happy and I want to spend the rest of my life with you, and I would like to have kids with that as well. And try a gentle approach and see how it goes, and try not to, as best as you can, allow your brain to go into the future of you guys having to separate and how much longer that'll be and all that kind of stuff, because that's not actually happening yet. So we need to pull it back to what's actually happening in the here and now, and it's just a conversation about whether we do this or not. Give it a try and do come back to me if you do it and let us know how you got on, if it's something that worked out positively, or if you feel like you've made progress even in the conversation. And yeah, I hope it works out for you because having kids is the best. That's why we're having these conversations. So I hope it works out. And that's it for this week. I hope you guys have a lovely week. Look after yourselves and look forward to some more content coming from Help Me to Parent. We're going to try and bring as much and more value to you than we already do on a weekly basis. All right. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye.